What's going on, everybody? Bronco Juggalo here with day 2 of Brother Peanut Butter's Thankskilling Day Challenge. Today we are doing a creature feature. We're doing the cult classic 1988 Pumpkinhead. Starring Lance Henriksen and directed by Stan Winston, Pumpkinhead was a movie that did not do so well in the theaters when it came out, but has since formed a huge cult following where lots of people love this movie, lots of people defend this movie, and today we're going to find out if that defense is justified. Lance Henriksen plays a character named Ed Harley, whose son gets killed by a hit and run from some city folk. This movie is based in rural America, I believe 1980s, even though it's a bit ambiguous, but what makes me say the 1980s is the vehicles in it and the clothing of the city folk. When his son is killed, Ed brings the boy's body to a witch, who he hopes can resurrect his son. The witch tells him it is not in her power to do that. He said, "Well then, I hear that you have the power to summon a creature to get revenge for me. I even saw it once when I was a little boy." And the witch said, "Are you sure this is what you want?" He says, "Hell yes, let's do this." So she does it. She tells him to go and dig up old Pumpkinhead out the pumpkin patch. That's why he's called Pumpkinhead, because he comes out of a pumpkin patch. It's not because he looks like a pumpkin, because he doesn't. Something I always wondered about that. I've actually never seen this movie. Well, I've seen like 20 minutes of it. Way back in the day, a friend of mine was getting ready, and I walked in and was waiting on him, and he had this movie playing, and I watched it for about 20 minutes, left, never watched it again. So the witch resurrects the Pumpkinhead demon, which then goes out and takes on Ed's revenge in the form of killing these teenagers. After a while, Ed realizes what he has done is wrong, and he decides to try and stop the Pumpkinhead, which can only happen one way, and that way is to, spoiler alert, kill Ed. This movie really reminds me of pre-Psycho horror films. And if you know what I mean by that, horror films prior to Psycho were very old style looking, very gothic looking. You had a lot of the Hammer stuff, you had all the, Universal monster things. And this movie really reminds me of those, even though it's set in a more modern time period and it is a, more modern monster film. It just has that feel, it has that look to them. And that is actually something I'm going to go into my pros and cons. But before I do that, there's just a couple things I wanted to talk about. This movie actually had a video game. A lot of people don't know that. But in 1995, Bloodlines Pumpkinhead's Revenge was released by EA Video Games Company, Electronic Arts. And it didn't do very well, it wasn't well received, and it was pretty much a crappy game. But a lot of people don't even know it had a video game. So I thought that was kind of cool. The other thing is, and this one's for all my juggalos, and I'm sure that most of them know this already, but it is also the inspiration for the 2007 Boondocks Pumpkinhead EP. Clips from the movie are actually even used on the EP. I'm sure most of you know that. But it's still something I thought was worth mentioning because I just find it cool. So I'm going to start with the cons. So first con I have is that most of the kills in this movie are cutaway kills. Now that doesn't always bother me, but it did in this movie because I feel that with the type of subject matter we were dealing with the creature design we had to work with all the story we had to work with, I really feel that more brutal, violent, gorier kills would have worked better in this movie than it does. I think it would have serviced the movie better and given it maybe even a better reception when it first came out. This movie did not do well in theaters, but it's since, like I said, become very big with the cult world, and really happy for that because it does deserve it. It is a good movie. It's one that I never had really much intent on watching or any, desire to watch. But when I found it in the value bin at Walmart and I picked it up just to give it a shot, I'm glad I did because I really enjoyed this movie. I had a lot of fun with it. My second and last con is just that the movie is too short. It's only 86 minutes long, and it really feels rushed. It is paced semi-decently. You never really lose interest. But I feel like they rushed through some of the things they did. They rushed through some of the kills with the cutaways. They rushed through a lot of the story. I think they could have gotten more out of it than what they did. But those are very small cons in my opinions. They're very nitpicky. And they didn't really take away from my overall enjoyment of the film. My first pro is the look of the film and the cinematography. I love the way this film looks. And I don't know if you've noticed yet by now, but cinematography is a big thing with me. If a film doesn't look right and doesn't have that right atmosphere for what it's trying to convey, it can be a total bust. That is one of my small nitpicks with a lot of smaller independent films. A lot of times they don't understand how to get that feeling, how to get that cinematography just right. Now, there are quite a few that do. My buddy Dave Maggott's a good example of that. Really good with his cinematography. I really enjoyed it. The guys from Never Hike Alone, that was amazing cinematography. The guys that did Bone Hill Road, also amazing. I'm not saying that independent films don't always get it right, because there's a lot that do. But more often than not, the cinematography is something that lacks in independent filmmaking. But as I said, I love the look of this movie, and it's all got a really cool contrast. Whenever the Pumpkinhead is around the demon, it's very dark, and it's kind of shot in like dark grays and blues, and they really up it with the smoke machine, which is something that I said it reminded me of that old gothic feel, and it kind of looked like that too. And there's another movie that I'm going to talk about that has that same feel. But it's, you know, it's just a dark, evil looking atmosphere. And then when Pumpkinhead is not around, you have a lot of browns and reds, kind of showing the rural area and the candlelight that's used in a lot of the scenes of the lamps, instead of a lot of electricity and things like that. And I think it worked really well to show a really cool contrast. A lot of the candlelight scenes are very warm and inviting almost, whereas or just a lot of the, you know, non-action scenes, non-Pumpkinhead scenes. And then you have the contrast with the Pumpkinhead scenes being very dark and very, you know, just evil feeling. My next pro is the witch, and she was almost a con. And she is one of the reasons I said that this movie has that more old-style gothic film atmosphere. Because she is a very cliche witch. She is a witch you would see in just about any old horror film that had a witch in it, from, as I said, pre-Psycho. She has all the rats and the bats and the mice and the spiders and the snakes and the owls and all that in her house. And it all looks just very kind of cliche for a witch. She's an old hag. She sounds like an old witch, you know, and almost cartoonish. But after a while of watching it, I realized, hey, this kind of works for the look of this film. And I was actually enjoying it. As I said, at first it was kind of a con for me, but the more I watched it, the more I enjoyed it. So I switched it over to a pro, and I decided I liked the witch. The third pro I want to talk about is the creature design and the look of Pumpkinhead. I thought it looked amazing. I thought Pumpkinhead was done extremely well. It looks really good. It is designed really good. You can probably, I mean, I'm pretty sure it was a bodysuit used in most shots, maybe a puppet in some others. But you can't really tell that it's a bodysuit. Yes, it's a bipedal creature, so it could definitely very well be somebody inside of a suit. But they did a really good job on the look and the design of it, and it just looks really good and amazing. Pumpkinhead's head is pretty iconic, the way it looks and everything, and everybody knows it when they see it what it is. But what I like to concentrate on this is Pumpkinhead's face, like his actual face. And I noticed that a lot of the features look like Lance Henriksen, and I'm not sure if they did that on purpose or not. It would make sense with the story if they did that on purpose. But I really thought it looked really cool. It had an angular face, it looked a little bit like Lance, and it was very human looking on this big demon head. And I just really enjoyed it. Overall, Pumpkinhead was a movie that I really enjoyed, and I can't believe I waited this long to see it. Go ahead and check it out. Also, check out my other friends that are doing this challenge. We got Brother Peanut Butter, who created it, who's doing it. Horrific Nightmares JM is doing it, and I just found out today that Dave Maggot is doing it. In the meantime, guys, this is Bronco Juggalo saying I will see you tomorrow for day 3, the sci-fi horror. Peace.